Thank you, Sebastian. It's interesting when you start to think about how to present a person. What would make an audience excited about listening to a speaker? What do you think would be the most interesting person to be up here? A president, a celebrity, someone like Elon Musk or something? I tell you what would be the most interesting person to have as a keynote speaker on a stage. Imagine if the program told you that now we will have a random guy from the year 2050 up on stage. Would you be interested in listening to anybody from the year 2050? I guess you would. I guess in the end everybody would. Why? Why would everybody be so interested in listening to just a random person? We don't know anything about his or her background or education or anything. We just know the fact that somehow someone managed to fix time travel, and here this person is from the year 2050. Of course that's interesting. We will listen to that person because that person have knowledge. Knowledge that we don't have. No one in this room have any idea of what will happen the coming 25 years, of course. We are very bad at predictions, you know that. Predictions are like sausage. Everybody loves them until they know what they're made of. I read a story a couple of weeks back, a story about two Canadian men, Richard and Eddie. They were both born on the same day in 1955. Somehow, in that nursing home, they were mixed up. So they went home with the wrong families. And they lived the entire life up until today, almost at the age of 70. For 7 decades, they lived the wrong life. The life that was supposed to be for someone else. A life full of joy and sorrow and, all the things in a life. Richard was of Polish-Ukrainian descent. So he learned that he had relatives in Europe. Eddie was, his mother was from an Indian tribe, so he was even bullied all throughout school for being an Indian. Even though it turned out now that he never was an Indian. Of course he didn't know, and his friends didn't know either, so it got me thinking that it's so interesting to think about what is it that we don't know? Because obviously today, we in here in this room have so many questions that we still don't have any answers to. I'm going to start by doing a little warm-up exercise here. Let's see if this one works. Can you start the first slide for me? Go to the numbers. We will do a memory exercise, or a memory competition, if you will. I want you to study the numbers I'm showing on the screen. Study them carefully and then try to remember the right order. And eventually we will go to black and we will see who in the room have the best memory, okay? No, I'm just kidding. We're not going to do that, of course. But I have a friend of mine. He actually does this. That's one of his key things in life. He is the Swedish memory champion 3 times. His name is Mattias Ribbing. If you Google his name, you will find out that he's even a grand master of memory. There is a group of people in the world who have they have the title, a grand master of memory. To become one of them, to become a grand master of memory, you have to pass 3 tests. And one of these tests is the numbers test. So you study numbers for a while, and then you put them aside, and then you're supposed to write down as many as possible, of course in the right order. And to be one of the grandmasters, you have to make at least 1,000. It's kind of impressive, isn't it? This is not my slide, this is Mattias' slide. This is actually his right answer in that company. It's not 1,000 numbers, it's 1,060. So I guess he wanted to show off maybe, I knew more than 1,000 or something. I was very impressed when I talked to Mattias about this. I guess you are impressed too. I mean, if you're like me, you have a hard time remembering a phone number or a PIN code or something like that. This is not what we are best at. But then after a while, you know, when you start thinking, I started thinking and I said to Matthias, cool. And no offense, but what's the value of this? I mean, honestly, if you could tell me that you could teach me how to remember 1,000 numbers, I'm not even sure I would want to. Because if this is today's problem, who can remember all these numbers? You can all solve that problem, can't you? I see some of you are taking pictures right now. There you have it. You have them. Now you can tell us all the numbers, because we all have these in our pockets. And then talking about these phones and hard drives and everything. You know, in this piece of hardware here, I have 512 gigabytes. I don't know, what did Peter just show us? 128 terabytes in his pocket? We can fit hundreds of millions of grandmasters of memory in a suit like this. So my point, and the start of this here, because I can see on some of your faces that what is he talking about? You know, my point here is that in the age of computers, obviously we will see a decreasing value of memory. Because when we talk about knowledge, when I went to school, and still in many school systems, knowledge is quite often associated to memory. How much of what you read, hear, see, can you remember? Because that's the way we try out to find out how much knowledge you have. And of course, this here is extremely hard for human beings. We are not very good at processing or storing data. That's not our best skill. Let's be honest about that. You have to be a grandmaster to manage 1,000 numbers. And today, Andrew just told us about, what was that? In 3 years' time, the global computer hemisphere will be full of 291 zettabytes of data. Does anybody know how much a zettabyte is? I had to Google it. It's 1 billion trillion bytes. And then 291, that means, yeah. Okay. This, of course, is extremely simple to a computer. 1,000 numbers, it's nothing. So let's do another one. Who in the room can tell the difference between a muffin and a dog? I don't know you, but I dare say that everybody in the room can do this one. And that's why you're laughing. Because this is ridiculous. These kind of pictures, we see them on Reddit forums, online, you know. These are funny because it's so silly. It's so silly, it's so easy. The point is here, you don't even need to think to answer this one. You just know it. But think again. Think about the computer. Think about the last slide I showed you. Think about all the numbers to a computer. How would this one look to a computer? Same as the last one. Just numbers, huh? That's what a computer sees. So here we have pictures, and pictures are pixels. And in this case, every pixel will represent a number, just to make us understand. So it's easy for us to understand that it would probably be tricky to explain the rules for the computer to understand this. What's the difference between light brown, dark brown, white, some black dots, versus light brown, dark brown, some black dots? It's hard. Now the Huawei team showed me, actually they showed me the Mate 60 AI assistant, the phone. I guess that's the grandmaster among phones, because the phone managed this one. So the phone managed to pick out all the chihuahuas and some of the blueberry muffins. Not all, but more importantly, the phone today didn't have any wrong answers at all. So, but again, the point is, we are beyond grandmasters. We don't even have to think to solve a problem like this. So why is that? Because the last slide is so hard for us, and this one is ridiculously easy. Well, that's because of how we learn. What would you say if I ask you a question? How do people learn? Do we learn the same way, or do we learn different ways? Who is up for different ways? People learn different ways. Who would say we learn the same way? Some of, yeah, we actually do. We learn the same way. I thought different ways too, but Matthias told me that, no, there is one way for everybody to learn. It's superior to anything else. It's through experience. That's how we learn. We learn things through experience. And that's why you want experience when you are trying to get new people on your team. That's how we learn. So that's why also we are not like computers. Sometimes we even get better with age because we have more experience. Computers, on the other hand, we don't want old computers, do we? So there we have it. The start here, just to set things straight. Machines learn from data, and we learn from experience. This here is a quote just to make you think about the last 3 decades. 3 decades ago, Jim Barksdale was the CEO of Netscape, and he said something like this to his team of managers. If we have data, let's look at it. But if all we have are opinions, then let's go with mine. And I guess that's fair, because honestly, if we don't know, if we don't have any information access, data isn't here, we still have to make a decision. And that decision will be based on a gut feeling, an opinion. And of course it's going to be the CEO. The CEO have this responsibility, so the CEO will have the last call. But the point is, now we have data. We just heard about it. We're entering a world where we are sort of swimming in zettabytes of data. And then, of course, we can no longer afford to make decisions based on gut feelings, opinions. So we're moving from an era with a lack of data to an era where we can no longer rely on experience. And it's quite interesting when we start to think about this era of digital transformation that we heard so many interesting points on today. I mean, in just a couple of decades, we went from mainframe computers, a very few, like a handful of them in the whole world, a full room of computing power. Mainframes to desktop, to laptop, to mobile, to wearable. Today, I'm wearing a computer. Many of you are. We're all having computers. Computers are everywhere today, of course, because of exponential growth in processing power, Moore's law, and all of that. After wearables probably comes invincibles. So technology is just with us somehow. For example, we start talking to technology. And then I think it's fair to assume when we're moving here, we have to realize what happens. Well, the revolution to me is more about access. The digital transformation is a revolution of access. Today, everybody have access to computers. And remember, computers can help us with all that stuff that we are not very good at. So with this computer here on my arm, I start to depend on it now. I can get answers to my questions. How do I get the flight ticket to Berlin? How do I find a nice restaurant when I'm here in Berlin? How was my sleep quality last night? I get all this, so I start to depend on it. I can't manage without it anymore. And the interesting thing is, we depend on it so much, so we don't even think about, where is my data? Who is storing my data? You heard that data is the new oil. But that means obviously that data is money. But you still don't have time to think about it because we depend on it, don't we? When you buy a watch or a phone or something, who in the audience read the manual anytime when you buy a new device? No, we don't do that. What do? It takes like 30 seconds. You do something before it starts working. What do? You say yes, don't you? To a lot of questions. There are questions like, is it okay for me to monitor your sex life, your alcohol consumption, and everything? It's like, yes. So now it works. It works. I can see my pulse and how many steps I took and stuff like that. So we depend on this, and we don't think too much of where is my data. We talk about the cloud and cloud applications. Remember about the cloud, what they say. The cloud is just someone else's computer. Next up, I think, with wearable technologies, with invincible technologies, when we start talking to computers, wearing computers, we will go from large language models, the hot topic of today, to large action models. Because computers will start to register when we take action. What will make me act? It's so much more interesting to start predicting actions rather than just reading language, isn't it? And thereby we are entering an era of knowledge and discovery, a journey of data awakening. So to me, I think it's quite obvious. what AI is about. Right now, we went from big computers to small computers to wearable computers to connected wearable computers, and everybody have them. But of course, that meant that we have a lot of data. But who in the room can handle all this data? Well, we can't. We can't even process 1,000 numbers, a lot less terabytes or zettabytes. And that's where AI comes in. With AI, finally, someone can help us make sense of all the data. So we will get understanding. So with AI, we will not just have access to connected devices, but we will have access to understanding. Someone knows me, someone understands me better even than I understand myself. How does that sound? And then I think the era of just endless scrolling and asking questions is over, because then we will get so much more new knowledge out there in this vast ocean of unknowns. Isn't this scary? Yes, of course it's scary. To set out on a journey of discovery was always scary. It's always been scary. But remember this, if you only remember one thing from this session, remember this as your superpower. Not exactly the fact that you can tell the difference between a chihuahua and a blueberry muffin, but the fact that you are human. You are a human being. That means that you learn from experience. Computers don't do that. They're not conscious. They don't have experiences like that. And with AI, everyone will eventually have access to knowledge that until now, no one had. So again, imagine that future. What will your grandchildren think of you? In a world where everyone have access to knowledge that until now didn't exist, I truly believe that our grandchildren will look back at us and think something like this. Remember grandma, grandpa? Poor guys, they didn't know shit. I hope you got some new thoughts, and I wish you a lovely day. Thank you.